Welcome everybody to tonight's ID Network get-together. For 7 years we've been getting together on Wednesday nights and doing a visit about the business side of the marketplace, producing great art and trying to do well in the economy with it. And in that period of time we launched our Hangouts on Air last year, a year ago this time, and so we've been 1 year getting into it with Google+, and we still have some things we struggle with from time to time because it seems like Google changes things just about every week. They tweak something and it always affects us to a degree. But welcome to all of you tonight. Most are members of the I&E for Inspiration and Encouragement Network. We started this, whatever it has become, in 1983 as people began to purchased the power pen, the paragraving tool, air turbine that I invented in the 70s, and began to play with that equipment. And so we called ourselves a network anyway, just because of the association of the relationship of who was doing what. And over the years it's kind of grown into what I think the best part of what we're doing now is our master's program. Take a person who has never done anything like this before and gradually learn what it takes to do well with your work, but also to do well with your trading in the economy. And as you get better at it, you'll improve. Somebody's got a mic open. Can we get you to double check your mics, everybody? There we go. There we go. That part has nudged me forward and helped me to develop the side of my career that I want to finish with now. And most of you are just beginning. A few that are on the film strip tonight in the green room talking about being together and doing something together have had their equipment and been a part of this for a long time. And they have a great deal of wisdom. Jose Valencia was on just a second ago and talking about his big, beautiful carving going into that new custom home in Dallas and Texas, and he's now finished the carving, and then he's going to go down at the end of the month and begin to carve actually in the home. They left a tree right in the center of this trophy room, and he's going in and carve that for this individual as well. So this last 2 or 3 months for Jose has been rather intense because he's going through an entirely new learning curve and figuring out what do I do and how do I do the work and do a good job of it. Well, when you bump into somebody that will reach back and say, hey, call me, I'll tell you what I did and how I did it, or I will do a show and show you how I did it, I know what he's sharing, and I know how valuable what he's sharing is. It seems to me the very best thing we're doing now is the mixture between all of us of saying, this is what I'm going to do, and if I can help lift you in the process of you taking on what you're going to do, we all do better. When I saw this quote on the web, on the stream in Google+, I was just really stopped and pondered it. And Judith does a lot with people who are writing books and trying to help make things work in the marketplace with writing a book. She's called the Book Shepherd, and she's in Denver, and I haven't mixed with her a lot, but I'm aware, so I follow her all the time, and she puts up really good stuff. But when I saw about the side of the uncomfortability, something that scares you a little, something that intimidates you a little, oh, that's so darn important. That is the very line that most people will not cross. There was a lady this morning who posted her first video. Not done a video before. She sat down and did the Hangout and then shoved it over onto YouTube, and it was her first attempt at it. And so Steve Harvonian, how do you say his name, was trying to promote her and help her get started a little bit and be encouraging, so I jumped in and did a little too. And I remember really well when I first tried to do a video. I didn't know anything about it, and it was back in the days where I was using analog, half-inch videotape on my 2-bit little camera and trying to make that look good at all. The beginnings of my own career of trying to sell a high-speed, brand-new whiz-bang tool on the marketplace that no one knew anything about was a little bit like trying to sell a Learjet. And so I had to literally invent a way to show people at a distance what that tool would do before they actually bought it. And not only did it work, it worked extremely well, but oh, the videos were bad. And I keep trying to decide if I dare show you my first footages or not, because some of those videos were just absolutely ridiculous. But that little scary thing that comes in the head and heart of all of us is usually a really good monitor. It's something to kind of watch for, and it really does require courage, that amazing magical little word right there, to get on with it and go ahead and try it anyway. And so it took years to come up with the I&E network kind of idea and the logo that Gary Price loaned to me, and looking at who's doing what and how everyone has contributed here. We did the show with Keith Hone last week, and thank you, by the way, all of you, for your comments and your participation and your acknowledgement of Keith's contribution. What a great man. Learned to do what he learned to do with high-speed power carving, and then shared it with all of us. And that sharing and that mixing now seems to me to be amazingly complete, with our ability to connect tonight from all over the country. People from all over the world can sit in on a hangout on air and participate, and hopefully gain an idea or two each time we sit down. I try and mix the elements of what I think have helped me succeed. Then we do shows about Craig and talk about how he has succeeded. We talk about what Al has done. We talk about what Mel's doing. We talk about what Ron has done. We mix all of that information into what we're doing here. I can see where gradually I'm gonna get to do less, and then you guys can all do a little bit more and more. And the ultimate goal is to fill up schedule of ourjourney.tv, which would then perhaps be our own cable network. Now, occasionally I throw this into the mix, but yesterday I got to describe for two people new people I bumped into that knew who I was ahead of time. And I always, when they say, "Oh yeah, I know you," I never quite know how to, we don't quite know how to react to that, because I have a bit of a reputation in several directions. But they said your ideas and what you've done with your drill and the concept was what they were interested in, and that's what I'm most proud of. And as I try to describe to them, because they wanted to know, they've got ideas too. They want to know, what can I do with a good idea? How can I turn it into something? And I talk often about Araya Mountain Dreamer that wrote the invitation poem in Canada. And you remember how she said that all she did was pick up a thread of interest and never let go. And finding that thread of interest is a bit of a challenge, but as soon as you get that figured out, then what you do is start to maintain the direction and the pathway that would turn that something that you want to pursue into reality. And from that point on, it seems to me it's really a challenge. The easiest thing being an adult is to get off the track. Always. And so how do I do that? What are some ideas? What are some ways that will help me actually stay in a position where I can turn the work effort I'm doing into some serious productivity? This is really in honor of what Jose's accomplished, because I've watched him climb. I've watched him take on things that he didn't think he could do. I remember sitting down and engraving with him here at the company over at Keith's on a piece of metal one time under a microscope, and it was the first time he started to do a little more tight, a little more precision, a little more careful kind of engraving, and oh gosh, it turned out great. And if those kind of moments where you start and you're not sure you can do it, and then you begin to realize that you can do this, then the drive to do well, to produce really, really excellent work is what I think we have to really pay attention to. We're going to talk about refreshing ourselves, and what I think is so important tonight is to kind of reset and recheck, double check what your pathway is, where the directions you're going, and what you're going to really what you're trying to accomplish. Jay Richardson's on with us tonight from Oklahoma, and he's doing some beautiful custom rim for a motorcycle right now. And the person who owns that motorcycle wants to have a quote that Emerson's famous for. It's don't go where there's a trail that others have gone. Pick out a path and leave your own trail. And if that's not the best advice and the best counsel out there, I don't know what else could be better. It really is such an amazing thing to know that like what you're doing and then continue to do it to the point you know you're starting to finally get rather good at it. And it really boils down to this fine line between making a living and having a life. And we're one of the earliest groups to talk about the fact that the really people that have really great lifestyles, their living is their life. They've figured out how to make their living pay the bills and yet still have something that just thrills your soul every time you sit down to do it. So if you can kind of get your pathway figured out, we got to work hard on that front end. It's really difficult to see what can you accomplish. But then staying on track until it succeeds, that's the next really difficult thing to do. And I think that's why we're together. I think that's what, if I could boil the I&E network down into one thing, is a supportive circle of like-minded people who are discovering their talent, developing their talent, mastering something, mastery of something, and then learning to share it. So, shared vision. Of all I would like to see in place before I'm gone would be that we have our own cable television network, and it'll be ourjourney.tv/Mel Joins, and he'll have his show up there, and ourjourney.tv/Ron Snaberger, and he'll have his show up there. And every day, for whatever hours we can fill it, there will be something available to the world out there at large who's trying to figure out, how can I grow old and enjoy it? How can I do well growing old? I followed the same pattern for the last few years. From the beginning of the year through the end of the year, there's certain subjects and certain concepts that are fairly timely for the marketplace. And so as we try and grow our inspiration, creativity, and that passionate intersection that we're going to take advantage of, finding our way is the whole issue. And I'm positive that you know that someone else's success is not going to be your way of doing it. Each of us uncover our best selves, and then we go to work on that to try and pull it into something that we can trade in the economy. It's not easy to do. If it were easy, everybody would do it because it's a really desirable thing. But how to do it is really what is pressing for most of us. So to me, when I came up with the title for what I wanted to write was the Bible for this, a business plan that would literally help people to understand and figure out how to get from their as-is world to something better. Boy, when I hit on the opportunity intersection, I was just so thrilled. And after I've gotten the book done and then started trying to put it into the marketplace, I really feel like I'm working on the last chapter of my life. But because of what Steve Covey always preached, the fact that highly effective people begin with the end in mind and work backwards. Every one of you should be dreaming up where you'd like to end up and then figuring out how can I connect the dots between where I am right now and yet where I would really like to be. Once you've got this pattern in place, this written formula of what you're trying to accomplish, you have something that then can begin to measure everything that comes along, because you can see if it fits your plans or if it doesn't fit your plans. And that then is how you get past this problem of getting off the track. How the hell did I get clear over here when I started going in the direction I started going? And I like to use the Rumsfeld quote, cannot manage that which you cannot measure. Measuring ourselves and measuring these unusual plans isn't an easy thing. I know that. And most of my shows are aimed right at trying to help you figure out, is there a way that I can measure myself? Can I see where I started and then measure it against where I think I'm getting to? This knowing thyself thing is really quite a subject, because most of us don't see ourselves overly well. I went to the doctor, to the dentist yesterday, and had some dental work done by my old buddy. And his name's Brian, and Brian Spenlove was 4 years younger than me, the same age as my brother, who was also a dentist. And then there were two other brothers in town that both became dentists. So there were me and my class in high school, and then 4 years later there were four more in our little tiny town who all became dentists. And Brian's still at it, and I'm really glad, because he did just an incredibly good job. And I sat there yesterday in the dental chair getting worked over it. I just thought, oh, every dentist in the world should have to have his own teeth fixed at least once a year to remind them what you put people through. And I am even more proud of the fact that I figured out a way to pull that dental drill out of everybody's mouth and put it over on motorcycle wheels and pieces of crystal and all kinds of wood carving and anything you can imagine. I just have so much fun telling people what this high-speed capability really is. So, coming up with a passionate prescription was also rather easy. It's exactly what I thought it required for me to be able to do it in my own life first, and then continue to encourage others from then on. It feels to me, when I run into members of the network or new people that are struggling with their career as an artist, I can almost always tell when you don't have a business plan, when you don't really know what you're doing. Your questions and your comments will give it away. And that's part of what the purpose of a business plan really is to an experienced business person is going to know pretty quickly whether you really understand cash flow or not. You're going to understand very quickly when you don't buy your inventory well. It's not too hard to see that the second card of all the business is fixed overhead, management of your cash flow, because you just don't understand how it even works yet. And so, interesting enough, if you don't have a plan in place, then you're sure not going to be able to double check the directions very often. When I walked in the door of the office that day, and I had first sets of opportunity intersection in those boxes, I've had a lot of fun moments in my life and career, but there's nothing been more fun than this. But from that moment of getting it actually done and put all together, I sat down with my major client and patron, my good friend in Park City this Sunday, and we were visiting basically about what next. And what I'm trying to do now is launch the book in the marketplace, figure out where it would best sell and how best to kind of promote it. And so the work part now it's just starting. I'm really aware of how much it's going to take. And I know that if you get the book done, that's one thing. You just feel like you've split heaven and earth in order to get something accomplished with a new product like this. But then the work part really takes on, and this is where the courage comes in of saying, okay, I'm at this stage, but now what next should I take on? We're working on a really large project for my brother-in-law, Chris, and it's just a massive effort on his part. And yet, we were talking about yesterday as we drove home, talking about the fact that it's got so much potential and it's going to fit so well in the economy. But I'm trying to keep him realistic on one hand of how much work it really requires, and then have him be really confident and excited about the fact that as he solves one problem after another, he's going to be able to actually make it work. And the idea that I have a story and we have a story together, but then you have your own story as well. And to me, that combination is going to be really important one day. Usually artists and artistic efforts, people are quite alone. They go at it alone. But all the great publishing houses and all the great musical companies, what they do, a company is a gathering of like-minded people with a specific kind of project and task at hand. And so we're not a company, we're kind of an association that begin to not only find our own way, but look to see what we can do to help someone else find their way too. I remember distinctly when I was first introduced to a compass as a Boy Scout. And they had a compass course set up at camp, scout camp, and then we were given our compasses, and then we were given a little instruction, and then we had to go out and find our way from one point to another point via a compass. And when you can see and know how things, what you're kind of after, using a compass isn't too challenging. But then what they did is come back after we'd done it a time or two, then they blindfolded us enough so that we couldn't see other than what our compass readings were. And all of a sudden the game got a lot more challenging. And as I recall, I was the only one that finished, and I got right to where I needed to. And I was so thrilled that I could use a compass to help guide me. Now, unless you know how to use the compass, you're really kind of asking for trouble. It's usually not too hard if you can see visually from here to here, and you begin to know that your compass is going to kind of somewhat help you somehow. I'm pretty sure most people don't understand how that compass actually works. Unless you've been in the military, unless you've been in hunting situation or outdoor sports activities or something, it's not likely that you've ever used a compass. But how it works is more what we call triangulation. The compass actually points in one particular direction all the time. That then is called true north. And so you can measure a reading from here to here. If here's where you're going and here's where you are, you can take a reading here, and then you can read it along the way. Checkpoints against this angle right here will begin to tell you if you're getting there or not. So in most efforts to try and triangulate yourself in your life as to see if you're accomplishing anything or not, you have to go through this process. You have to be able to open the door and see, okay, here's where's true north, and here's where I am here, but here's where I would like to get to. And then constantly measure those efforts, okay? If you've ever used the compass to get where you are trying to go, or have you just relied on opinion? You can get through life by saying, how am I doing? And whenever I hear that comment from a member, a new person, I always know you haven't yet done any kind of plan. Because it's not going to work well if all you have is somebody else's opinion about what you should do. And it has to become a point where you start to literally, we're trying to encourage you to start driving the ship, driving the boat, taking it where you most want to take it. Our masters that are sitting in on the program tonight, the people that have been at this for a while and have accomplished quite a bit already, they're the ones that now have a real shot at something great with their life. And the miracle that comes into a person's life is kind of after that, along that journey, the pathway of the rest of your life, that you're carving out your own way because you have the courage to basically take on the things that make most other people quite anxious and turn them into reality, and thus you then begin to leave a trail. You begin to leave a pathway. I'm so struck by the fact that most everybody on the web playing with Google Plus are quite young. And they've got a brand new toy, and it is an amazing toy. There's just no question. It's a tool like I've never seen before, and it's changing how business is done every hour of every day. It's just unreal. I got to talk 2 days ago with one of our better masters, this Wade Griffiths, and Wade's dad helped me get the company started a few years ago, and he came into the company to kind of see, he hadn't been in for a while, to see how we were doing, and the boys are setting up new machines, and got another huge order sitting on their table. And so we visited a while. I told him, I says, Wade, you need to get on Google Plus, get you an account, get you a Gmail Studio after your name account. And I can't tell you how many hard-headed people are out there that will not go get their name, Lou Jensen Studio, at gmail.com, and then sign up for a Google Plus account so that Google can then start to keep track of all of us together. They won't do it. And I think, well, okay, pretty foolish, because that's how this whole machinery works. And I don't think you can kind of make the map work unless you know how to use the guidance system. Compass isn't going to do you much good if any road will do. And in business, without being targeted and specific in the efforts that you're trying to make, the odds are you won't succeed either. I pulled up on Wikipedia when I was starting to put this together articles about the direction finding instrument used in navigation. So it's a tool for navigation. And navigation is how am I going to get from where I am right now, my as-is world, to something better. It shows directions in a frame of reference that is stationary relative to the surface of the earth. And that's probably going to throw most people. What makes a compass is that needle is magnetic and will line up with the magnetic poles, the North Pole, South Pole of the Earth. Before this came along, they used the North Star because it's the one star that doesn't move up there. It stays where it is. And so if you can find the North Star, then you can relatively judge where you are now as opposed to where you were based on the angle of where you're looking at that star. And then they came up with the navigational thing. They discovered, oh geez, this is way back. 200 and 300 BC, I think, is when they started to figure out they could do play with magnetism. And then they started putting together what's now, this diagram is called the compass rose. And it has the names abbreviated so that you know that's north, that's east, that's west, and that's south. Now, without a compass and without the navigational tools and the sense of where you are, you can get lost really fast. Really fast. And I've always really been anxious about asking other people's opinion about where I was. When you're lost and you start asking for help, it's amazing the difference in the kind of advice and counsel you get on getting where you really do want to go. Because everyone has an opinion about it. And yet, can you see, if you don't have a map and you don't know where you're going or why, then all of a sudden you're really having a problem. But what if you've got a compass and you don't even use it? Never get around to measuring it. Or you don't check it nearly often enough. The rougher a tool is and your use of that tool, the more often the frequency has to be in order for you to double check yourself and actually see if you're getting anywhere. And so as we do the shows until I'm gone, I'm going to keep doing shows that have this same kind of pattern every year to help you to begin to realize that the economy has evolved from meeting around a tree in the middle of nowhere to trade on every Saturday afternoon to the entire economy that exists around the world now. And if you don't know how that economy works and you don't get within the winds that are blowing, you're never going to get anywhere. Most who've been in on my shows for a little while know what's the best week of the year in the economy in the United States. What week is the very best week in sales? My real estate agent's working on selling our family estate out in Verlin. Looks like we're just about to get her done. And he said that last week was his very best week of the year, and it was that way all the time. Because given construction constraints and development costs and timing, everyone makes their decisions to do their new stores just about now. And then they go to work. So they've been looking for property all through the season. Now they're getting ready to roll it out. And everybody in the entire economy, they do a big gathering in Las Vegas. And that's where most of these real estate agents gather with these purchasing people who are buying for McDonald's and for all the major corporations. And since Vernal is the 6th fastest growing economy in the country, there's just so much happening out there right now. It's just exciting to watch it explode right under everybody. And yet it's a timing thing in business and in economy and in playing a game of cards. It's timing with everything, and that has a great deal to do with what's going on with the motivation and why are these subtle things that I should keep track of. We all kind of know when something's wrong in our life and our living, but we don't always know what. And it's almost always us that's the problem, not someone else. And so seeing ourselves and understand what we're dealing with and going after what we really ought to be going after is what we've got to get to somehow. Motivation is a fire from within. If someone else tries to light that fire under you, chances are it will burn very briefly. That's all I've talked about so far tonight, is this thing that's so important that you get it. No one else can do your life for you. If you're going to get something out of this last few years of your life, these last few breaths that you have to take, you're the one that has to dig in and make the plan, dream it up, make the plan, and then get everything together you need to try and go on that journey and then launch that ship. Let's get it going and let's see if we can actually make the effort. I don't think there's any question that your inclination and your interest in your artistic effort should become the pathway. Developing your skills, developing your talents, and then trading them with the world, there's just almost no better way to grow old. And you can see that same pattern in every one of them. I mix with most of you on as much basis as I can to try and help everyone finish the job, to assist and encourage and participate as much as I can. And some of our circle are working on incredibly significant and large projects. And as that fulfillment of almost the last 30 years of our going down the road together is kind of becoming more and more powerful, that's going to then influence all of our lives. And so it behooves us to kind of do that effort, make that effort to get from where we are to here. And how can I consistently persist from right here to right here? It really doesn't make much sense to just wander all over the place and not have the map in place and then constantly double check. How am I doing? Now, in a very subtle way, the internet and Google Plus Stream, Facebook kind of Google's version of that, I think is the way to help you figure out how to get from here to there. Instead of saying I don't know, what you post and what you interact with will determine where there is. And Google Plus is actually a two-edged sword, because my heavens, you can get distracted quickly. Most of the things posted are really creative stuff, and they can just light your head up so quickly and draw your interest off of what you even started out thinking. Sometimes I can't even remember what I was going after or what I was looking at. I just get so fascinated with everything that's showing up there. Most of you know I've been a magazine destroyer for the last 40 years. I just love magazines, and that's kind of what you get when you open up your stream every day. It's a creative magazine with pages and with advertising and with everything that a magazine would have to throw at your individual interests. And now we've got Google's algorithms and their computers to help throw whatever gets put on to Google Plus. 550 million people. When they bother to post something, if it's of interest to Lou Jensen, guess what? It's going to show up in my stream. So it's not only just a magazine, it's right in my hand. It's all done for me, and it's there for me to work with or to have it work kind of against me. So this constant double checking thing begins to have some interesting impacts. I know you're enjoying the mixture with each other. I can see by the comments, I can see by your plus ones and your repostings, your activity with each other is so great. I just appreciate all of that support, especially for new people. We've got quite a few new people in and around us are curious about what the I&E Network's all about. And I think if you'll bother to do a little more planning and a little more preparing so that you know where you're going and why, then your double checking of how am I doing will help you keep you from wandering. It will keep you more on track. And then it's you that's working toward that. If you're not paying attention to your over busy tactics and schedule, it will interfere with you. If you've got a great deal of stress in your life, that will also interfere. Being really persistent is some of you's biggest problem. You can hang in there for a little while, but on the long run, you just lose your patience and the idea goes right out the window. And then every one of us have got some bad habits, some things that interfere with our overall productivity. But the worst one, the biggest one, the one that I just harp on it till I'm probably wearing out my welcome in some cases. But if you don't have a plan of action, so when you wake up every morning, you won't likely get as much out of that day as you could. And if you go to bed thinking about what you're going to accomplish the next day, and then you compare that, triangulate that position, where you are the night before with where you're going to start the next morning, and aiming the rest of your life right at your individual other end in mind, dream and goal, you're triangulating things. I keep thinking, well, if you go to bed every night scared to death or upset or anxious or worried sick, then we got to fix it somehow, don't we? Can't we get it into a position where the dream starts to make a big difference? Remember, when the dream is big enough and strong enough, then the odds become less worrisome. In my case now, with the books and things that I'm working with, I interacted with Hobby Lobby, chairman of Hobby Lobby's executive secretary Friday, and they're trying to schedule a time for me, Jay, to come to Oklahoma City and present the book to David Green. And that's a pretty good shot. I know it's a big one, it's a long shot, but I'm excited about being able to get that book into 1,000 Hobby Lobby stores. Can you imagine the impact? Then I'm going to go after the other hobby connections for it. And then last Saturday, just out of the blue, my son Ryan was at the ball game with his adopted son Oliver, and it was a t-ball baseball game. And Oliver's grandfather is the director of creative development products for Stephen Covey's company, Franklin Covey and something like. And so I've emailed him now, and we got a chance to kind of connect with Covey and see if there's something I can develop around the book. They like new projects like this that haven't actually been marketed heavily yet, that they can then coordinate and pull into the business coaching programs that they already have. Now, a lot of the stuff I'm playing with right now is the culmination of staying on this pathway, this same climb up success mountain for a very long time. And I can tell you, this rings so true to me. When I saw this posted, I went, if it's scaring you a little bit and it's challenging a little bit, that's part of the signal that it is uphill. You're going the right way. If it's easy for you, you better really measure again. Better be really kind of careful, because the easy stuff almost always doesn't end up being of any worth or any real value. Now I'm going to show you the stream and pictures that I pulled out of my stream since last Friday. Most of all this kind of exploded right under me on Friday as I was wrestling with some really big problems, some really big issues for the family and the company and the network as a whole, and yet all of this good stuff just showed up in one stroke. And it was just amazing how when Pepard used to say, I love it when a plan comes together. But I wanted to show you where the stimulation of my thinking came from, the things that I was looking at. If you're going through the stream and you're not allowing the pictures and the images and the comments and the words, the posts to influence your individual thinking, then I think you're really missing the boat. You really want to try and come in here now and see if these things can influence you and help you. In other words, this is coming at you for a reason, and it should help you process your individual thinking. Ron Schneeberger's in Florida tonight. Ron, can you come on and tell them what happened to you?
Yeah, I can. Last week we were on vacation. Several people knew that, and when I go on vacation, I just don't go on vacation. I try to get something accomplished, and we go to a Wyndham resort. They're owners with Wyndham, and every so often they have an owner's update. Well, it wasn't time for us, but all of a sudden it hit me. Ron, they're talking in front of a group of people. You got to get in front of those people and let them know who you are. So I got on the phone and I called Brad, and I said, Brad, I don't know if what you think of this idea, but I've been thinking about this. And I said, I'm a good person to have in front of that group that you talk to tell them my experience with Wyndham, why we did it, why we upgraded, and why we go on vacations at a Wyndham resort. And he said, "Yeah, that sounds good, Ron." He said, "What did you have in mind?" I said, "Well, you do the owner's update." I said, "I'd like to get in front of that group of people, tell them who I am, and explain the situation and why it was good for us, and because of my health situation and how it benefits us to be able to stay at a nice place." And he said, "Ron," he said, I'd like to talk to him more about it. I want to talk to the district manager first." He said, "I'll call you back." So a little later on in the afternoon, he called me back, and we were talking. I said, "Well, Brad, why don't you come up to the room?" I said, "and we can talk better than just on the telephone." So he came up to the room, and we were talking about it and went through my story, and he said, "Ron," he said, "you got one hell of a story." I said, "Yeah, I know I do." He said, I don't even have to get permission for this." He said, "Next time you guys come down here," he said, "let me know when you're coming." He said, "and I'll put you in front of the group of people and you can talk to them." I said, "That's fine." And he said, "You know what else?" He said, "Have you ever seen those little owners videos that Wyndham does?" He said, "Your story's better than any story that I've ever seen." And he said, "I've been with Wyndham years." He said, "I'm going to talk to the people who do that." He said, "They have a professional production studio come in and shoot those." He said, "We can do it right here at the resort." He said, "And I'm going to talk to them and see if we can't get your story on the Wyndham site." He said, "because it's better than any of those others." So now, the next time we go down there, which is going to be probably a month or two, I'm going to be in front of maybe a few days, maybe a couple times a day, in front of a group of people, telling them my story like I did on Brett Baer's Hangout, my elevator story, and telling them who I am and giving my history, and at the end tell them that they can get in touch with me on Google Plus. And I don't know what's going to happen with that, but we're going to see. And if I don't know what's going to happen with the shooting the video for Wyndham, but I got a pretty good shot at it. And it's just you can't be afraid to just, if something pops into your head, follow the lead. What's the worst that could happen? He could have said no. Big deal. I wasn't doing anything anyway, But now I got a chance to be in front of people. They get to know me, and just maybe they might contact me and say, "Well, how did you turn your hobby into a business?" And that's what I'm looking for. I want to get my name in front of the people and get to talk to them. And that's what happened to me last week.
Now, what would have happened, everyone, and you express it, Ron, if you hadn't have followed the urge? If you hadn't gone ahead with the idea, nothing, right?
Nothing. Yeah, absolutely nothing.
And yet, when you bother to basically do like Judas's quote, "You've got the courage to try," all you got to do is do that, and then it often ends up even more than you expected, even more than you bargained for to begin with, as this has, right?
Yep.
Now, if you end up with a video clip of telling your story, then that will also push your image even further out there. Wyndham is a very big outfit, very, very strong image worldwide, and if you start doing something that then promotes them and helps them in their sales, then they promote you even more, and they pay all of that exposure. Do you see how you're prepared a little more for it all? I was so proud of you when you did the Fox News interview with Brett Baer, because you really handled yourself well. You presented yourself better than the others, in my opinion. And it's because you were ready. You were ready. And Napolitano and Brett Baer know what you were presenting.
Yes. Yeah.
You don't think they don't have an elevator rule?
Yeah, well, that was the first thing that came out of his mouth was the elevator story. He knew
Yeah,
exactly what I was doing. Yeah.
you bet he did. Congratulations, Ron. Now I'm going to go down through my slides that have shown up in my stream. I think by now you all realize that your individual stream is different than anyone else's. So what gets put into that stream for you to look at is pretty much decided by Google as to what they'll post in front of you. And so if you're not mixing and posting and plus oneing and interacting and commenting, they don't have as much information about you, and then it's really random. But it's the more you do, the more visibility you gain, the more they're going to understand what your interests are, and then they pick out of all that gets posted on Google Plus, they pick those out and start shooting them your way. So I'm beginning to go, that feels like Zen. That feels exactly like the impressions that come to you, those whispers that should help you find your way, are the things we should be paying attention to. So if you can let go of comparing, if you can let go of competing, if you can let go of the judgments, if you can let go of anger and regrets and worry and blame and guilt and fear, can you imagine how much better that process of living, how much better the journey is going to be? And then I pulled up this picture and I just about hit the ceiling. I don't know when I've seen anything that tickled me more than that. And I no more commented, and then Mel jumped on it, and I just sit back going, do you see how brilliant this is? Google Glass is one of their big products. It's one of the things they really want to make happen. And all the big manufacturers are moving towards jewelry kind of inlaid items that then are smart. And just for the record, I think it's one day going to be some kind of a headband or an actual implant. So it gets even more simple because the audio's got to connect with your ears and you got to be able to talk to it, and then it's got to be able to look out in front of you like the glass does. But to pick up a drinking glass and have it say, I'm feeling lucky, boy, if that's not a Google Glass, I'll eat it. But if you looked at all these 142 plus ones that were underneath it, and you read what they said in the comment, every one of them said, boy, I want a set of those. And then out of the blue, Mel came out and he says, yeah, it's a great idea, but maybe we ought to get permission before we jump on it. And he got a little bit of reaction out of the rest of the group, because he doesn't looking at it. We weren't looking at it the same way they were. We were looking at it from the eyes of a producer. And what I try to help you see is that this idea is as strong. You could spend the rest of your days and make a gazillion dollars right there. And I've tried to find out who owns the idea and the concept. I think Google does, because they patent everything. And clear back in the 70s, they did a patent on some really unique glassware. So you just, with something this substantial, you just have to know right away that the warning lights ought to go off like crazy here to not get yourself in trouble with Google. But what I do want you to see is the potential of ideas of opportunity that are underneath your nose in that stream every day. My dentist buddy yesterday they all hate Lou Jensen because I found the money. I found what they should have all found. They should have all seen it. And yet no one in the dental industry saw any potential for anything else with that drill. Just fix teeth, that's all it does. And I'm going, oh, good Lord, look at all the other really cool stuff it does. So when an idea hits you like this badly needs to go into your digital journal. And then as you continue with your life and planning your future, you're going to start to see one opportunity after another. How long have I been preaching the thank you business? And routinely, just about once a day now, I see someone knocking on that same door, or starting to. I've been talking about relationship marketing for at least the last 7 or 8 years. And now you see it more and more and more, because the thank you is the greatest card between relationships. It's how you say thank you to other people. This showed up in my stream. So which door are you going to open? Are you going to leave your life to just love? Are you going to leave your life to just money? Or are you going to leave it to just chance? And my thought was, what are the other doors? These seem to me to be your life is an accident. And I just go, oh gosh, that can't be a good way to grow old. Just cannot. From where you are right tonight to where you would most like to be is what your brand is. It is your compass. It is the tool of direction. It's how you present yourself. It's who you have become famous for becoming. If all of you could go to your grave with a master's level of position in the world of calligraphy like Ken Brown has done, I think all of you would die really, really pleased with your living. Something that's in the center of everything that you do. It's the reason you're doing it. It's who you most wish to become. And every time I see something that's displayed, what they're after here is uniqueness, and they got it. Can't miss that photograph. But I had never in all my time put inspire and vision, the words together. See how they're separate, but they're not. Inspired vision is, I think, what I play with. I tried to explain to this guy yesterday he's going to send me an idea because he wants me to give him an evaluation of whether the idea is worth developing or not. And I get hit with that a lot. And I tried to explain to him how ideas come to us. I don't think we generate any of this. I think it comes to us because it's helping us find our way. And there's greater powers in the world trying to help you find your way. And then you run the chance and the risk of bumping into the kind of people that are undermining your dream and predicting your doom, or they're criticizing you in any way. Remember they're telling you their story, not your story. You're the one that needs to make your story the reality, and you get to decide and you get to choose. Now, it's kind of interesting that there's always the risk that what you choose and decide won't work out in the short term, or that will complicate your life a great deal. And what I've tried to do in this whole process for 38 years now is have people who are further up the same mountain that I want to climb. That's the only voice that I listen to. Everybody has an opinion, but it's their opinion, and it's usually not got any experience based on it at all. I can tell when somebody's not done very much in business in about 10 seconds. And I get so frustrated with our country and our government because we got everybody back there running it that don't really know about business. They're all attorneys. And they're making bad choices because they don't understand the implications of what happens when you change the numbers, or when you don't pay attention to the numbers at all. I think we could give a test. I'm dreaming up a test, a business test, for all Congress and all the executive office and all the Supreme Court, because I'm not certain that any of them could pass a business test. And yet our government, America, is now the largest business in the world. So be really cautious when someone else here who's not done it. Okay? It's called wisdom. And this was the next slide that came up on my my stream. And then this was the next slide. I love the word cultivating because you can switch words with incubation, because incubating and cultivating in my mind are the same thing. When Guy puts something up who came out of his roots at Apple and has accomplished so much in his young life, I just sit back and think, can you imagine as he gets some seasoning and some experience, how much better he will be? He's found his pathway already. And each of us who are trying to figure out what we're best at, as we start to move into trying to trade that with the economy, you should get a little better and a little better and a little better at it all the time. You cannot ignore visual marketing ideas. We all either like each other or we don't. 50% of the economy will like you, the other half of the economy will not like you, and the colors help separate that out. It helps you to define more and more who you really are. I've never seen this done this way, but I'm looking at everything I'm doing now from a global perspective. I think what has happened with these new tools and the web now is this global mixture is the most amazing thing that's ever happened in my life. I have a whole circle of brand new friends all over the silly world, and I can play with them, interact with them every day easier than calling on the phone. That's what has happened here, this facilitating of connecting, this facilitating of finding like-mindedness. Google does that for you. And you don't have to eat, well, you have to participate so it knows who you are. So you can see that when you start posting really random stuff that doesn't have anything or much to do with your brand, you're not helping yourself here. You've got to guide what you put in so that therefore you'll get out of it what you most want to get out. So I see people that post an awful lot of randomness, and I'm trying like crazy to help them see that you really ought to pay attention to what you're putting out on that stream and what Google's putting in about you. It's a lot like going right up this tunnel, right through the solid ice. And it's generally the pathway most other people aren't paying much attention to. But the more you zero in on where you're going, the more unusual things will come that will just hit you like crazy. How much do you see on this stream always about how bad Mondays are? And who is posting things about how bad Mondays are? Person that has a job. If every day is a Saturday or a Sunday, and you can get to the point where you really control your time, then the sting that is Monday goes away, because what they're saying here is, God, I hate having someone else control my time. I got to go wrestle with problems every Monday. And I just love to play in that playground because we're changing this. We're modifying that. We're moving it in this direction here. If you know the Danny Kaye story and know what the struggles in his life with his beginning were, and then you start realizing why would he say something like this. God, if you could have a quote in your name down here that's this strong by the time you die, how cool would that be? Now, great thought, great idea. Nothing soothes the soul like a walk on the beach. But look what they put up. You can't reach for anything new, and your hands are still full of yesterday's junk. All of these quotes are so supportive of doing a better job with your life. And when you see them, instead of just seeing them and letting them go away or get away, toss them over in your journal now. It's so easy to do it once you get the journal set up. I've got to post a little bit more to finish up that one whole community. But if you'll connect there, I can teach you how to get your journal going. And it will become a tool that will then begin to really, really be fun for you. Question, have you ever been convicted of a crime followed by explaining why? So I put down no and said I've got a good lawyer. Then right after that, they put it, all it takes is one little creative idea. This is called vitamin C. Now, I don't very often run into marketing creativity that just puts a bullet right between my eyes, but the second I saw it done that way, in all my years, I've never seen a more clever way to put it down. What soothes the soul the most is to walk on the beach. And the next thing they had down was vitamin C. It's just an unusual and very unique way to say it, but oh my gosh, you can't let this get away. Don't know how to use it yet, but I guarantee you at some point I will. And every time I see these little, they just are like flashes of creativity. They're little things that show up in your life. And if you'll rub against them and keep them in your life, chew on them long enough, invariably they're going to change how you think. When someone puts up these three checklists, you remember when we talked about Einstein said that he was passionately curious? And everything you see on the web is, I want to be more passionate about what I've got. Well, passionate is something you fall completely in love with. It's something you do that you absolutely love doing, and you can see that you're making some progress with it. And all that artistic expression is that you get better and better and better at it, and you get more and more ideas of what to do and how to do it. Be passionate about what you do. Be passionate about those you serve. Be passionate about helping others succeed. That is the I&E network. And if that doesn't end up being successful with our efforts, I'll eat somebody's hat. Love this one. The old lion's got his face into the wind. Never seen a picture quite like that. Now, this is a picture series on my stream coming at me based on what I'm thinking. And based on how I'm doing, I'm trying to move the Imagination Committee and my story of my imaginary gang that helped me be more creative into a tool that can then reach out and touch younger children's lives at an earlier age to help them begin to learn to dream and look forward to it. I thought this was one of the most charming and captivating pictures I'd seen in a long time. Fit really well with my thinking that day. Can you look at yourself and realize that you're everybody in the sound of my voice tonight is a special edition, a limited edition. There's no one on this earth out of 7 billion people quite like you. And your job is to work on you, to decide what the problems are, decide what the next moves you need to make are, and then make those moves and see if you can't turn it into a life. Next, I saw this, and I was so amazed at the creativity. Talk about a presentation. Is that just unbelievable? A different time of the season, and then presenting both. Can you see pretty quickly how this could be a 4-season thing? How fun would that be? Now, what this picture says to me in marketing, from a marketing perspective and an artistic perspective, is contrast. And if you want things to stand out, you need to try and enhance the contrast, both with the art and the graphics, but also with the words and also with the presentation. Contrast is our exposure tool. And I don't ever want to forget this. This is one of the most clever and ingenious ways to present a product that I've ever seen. Just thrilled me to death. I watch a lot. Evan's on my stream. I follow him, and he just posts a ton. But he's really close often, and all he's doing is what I've suggested that each of you do, If we each rewrite this and redo something to the presentation of this quote, and then you put your name down here and your brand and your logo, and then maybe tuck in the I&E Network hands, can you see how then you start to present your own bits of wisdom, like Ron Snaberger's doing? Burger Bites, to me, is an absolutely brilliant position for Ron. And each of you need to start thinking and dreaming up, what could you do? How could you present it? So we start every day with a beautiful mindset. When you wake up, take a second to think about what a privilege it is to simply be alive and healthy. The moment you start acting like life is a blessing, I assure you, it will start to feel like one. Time spent appreciating is time worth living. And it doesn't take very long to see around you people whose lives really struggle, and then other people's lives who just flower. A lot of you don't know Robert overly well yet, but I've never met a more persistent and a more capable person in my life. There is absolutely nothing that Robert can't do. And he has the most delightful presentation, the most delightful personality. He's always upbeat when I interact with him. I never have known him to be sourpuss and be down in the mouth and frustrated with life. And if anybody could be, it would be Robert Lee. He's one of the world's leading guitar builders. He lives up in Napa Valley. He's incredibly good with everything he does, and yet fell out of a tree over 30 years ago. And if anybody could have turned into a despondent and difficult personality, it could have been Robert easily. And yet he's become exactly the opposite. And our masters are like that. They're very, very unique individual people. And what I watch for is when that uniqueness in you starts to show up, that's something special that perhaps eternity gave you, and you're doing something with it, then all of a sudden you've got a shot at really making a difference in the rest of this existence for all of us. I've never seen it said quite this way either. But is there anything more true than that? And then we go right back to reality, don't we? Let's wait and do it tomorrow. I present often the idea that what I think we're really doing together is I present for myself. My backdrop settled right there. I gotta redo my backdrop so it's easier to put up and a little bit higher. It's just not quite where I want it. The girl that presented her show, for her first show this morning, she had an interference in the background right behind her, and those interferences, lateral or vertical, are really problematic for doing an image that anybody wants to look at for any length of time. So all of you take a look at what you've done behind you. It doesn't take a lot. I bought this as just upholstery from a fabric shop. I got a couple of yards and I put it on a little 2-inch frame, wooden frame behind me. And all you do is begin to say, well, can I make my presentation a notch and a half better? And through the summer, I'd like to see all of you take a shot at that. Try and say, well, if I got a chance to sit down and visit and hang out with Oprah Winfrey, and I got my 3 minutes of exposure, wouldn't you want to kind of lay that card down just about as strong as you possibly can? You know, most who are doing hangouts aren't paying any attention to that, but I sure think you ought to. I want each of you to develop a show this summer and present a show through these summer months. And then we're going to go at them as comfortably as we can. I don't want it to be a big deal for each of you, but I'd like you to start laying out this effort to make this tool really work well for you. Now, Lance is the first one. Well, Nick does it often because he picks up when I get, or Mel picks up when I get in trouble and can't connect. And Nick knows what's going on really well too. Lance, you did your first one, and I apologize, sound like crazy for not being there Thursday night. But how did your first one go?
Well, I got some practice on it because the first time through I forgot to push start broadcast. So then the second time through, the screen share didn't kick in, so third time's a charm.
Yeah.
So I had to, but it was only about 10, 11 minutes. I just wanted to, more than anything, practice it, find out, and just cover just some quick topic, and at the same time give some exposure to some of the other folks in the I&E network that are doing some amazing stuff with the tools.
Good. Can you see how we can spread it out as you bother to make these efforts? Our ability to reach out in the world now we've never had anything like this before.
No.
But we really, like Ron Snaberger was told, my God, Ron, your story's our story's a really good one. It's as good as content as there is on the whole damn web. And each of you are quite a ways further up that mountain of success now than you were even a year ago, and definitely more than 7 years ago. Remember how all we had was text, and we barely could mix, and my technology was off about 90% of the time, and I just think how far we've come. Yeah, that's just hanging in there, and it's the way to do it.
That post that Ron did today that shared that how to do the Hangouts, a lot of that stuff, wish I would have had a week earlier, because told me some things I found out the hard way, and it's really good. And I think everybody who sees it should save it in their journal, because it's really all good stuff. If we're all going to start doing this, go through it, learn it. Might not use all the points, but definitely there's a lot of really good things to learn from that.
Well, and don't we have a lot to share? We're learning our own version of what to use and do. But just like taking certain quotes, when those quotes mean a lot to you and you start zeroing in on them, you're going to come up with your own version of that quote. And then that is what you share that also tells what your story is. And then all of a sudden you've got all this ammunition around you, this complete library of who you are and what you're trying to accomplish with your life that you can turn around and then share with some brand new person. Tickles me to death when I see something brand new now. It's like, well, they just barely got on Google Plus this morning. How many people would you guess just found Google Plus today? Got to be staggering number. Got to be huge. Any other comments? Anybody else? Ron.
Yeah, I want to say something about, especially for the new people who might be watching, don't know what the network is all about. An incident, I'm going to give you two, really. Yesterday, I saw that somebody tried to get in touch with me on a Hangout. It was Jay and Sonia. So I called Jay up on a Hangout, and he said, well, Sonia's trying to get in touch with you, and she can't. I said, okay. So Jay and I chatted for a little bit on a Hangout, and then I tried to get on a Hangout with Sonia, and I couldn't get on the Hangout with her. It wouldn't let me connect. So I made a couple clicks, got her phone number up there in Canada, and I gave her a call, and she was surprised that I called her. I said, well, I was talking to Jay, and he said you wanted to get in touch with me. And she said, well, yeah. And she said, I do have some questions, and it was about a job that she's going to be doing on engraving calligraphy. And I gave her, answered her questions. I gave her a couple of ideas, and we chatted on the phone for about 20 minutes. And so I helped her. But by the same token, people think, well, you're a master, you can do that. Masters need help too. I got my sandblaster up and I needed help. Mel Joins has experience. Been on Hangouts with Mel, driving him nuts, and he's been helping me. you're never too old or never too big to get help from somebody. And I appreciate what Mel's, done for me. I'm just, the sandblaster is going to be up. I'm taking this month to get it running. And then July samples are going out. We places to put them. And I'll be back on Palm Beach again, I think, with some stuff. And just in a different way. And but that's how our network works, and people don't see it. We don't always have to be on with Lou Jensen to connect and do stuff. And it's just, by Jay reaching out to me, telling me Sonia needed me, I called her. I reach out to Mel. We reach out to one another, and it's just great being part of this network. Because I, to be honest with you folks, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired, and my butt's getting kicked, and it's going in a direction that I'm going to get some work done. But thanks, appreciate it.
Absolutely, Ronnie. Absolutely. And what a gift to each other. I mean, I don't know about you, but every time I have to come in and start working towards trying to present something, okay? You got any idea how challenging it is to do 7 years of shows every Wednesday night and have something that you think is worthwhile? I mean, especially if I'm going to take a whole day. Every Wednesday is dedicated to, and I usually start Friday and Saturday putting ideas together, gathering images, and then I got to have something to present and talk about. But it's just what I've been living for the last 35 years. It's how I think, and I don't do it so that I'm hoping that everyone will like me because of what I've said. I do it because I think that's what I need to think about. And it's that courage of yourself, just like Ron just did, just lay it out there. That's how he thinks, that's how he feels, that's the response that he has, and it's really helpful to other people for you to verbalize that and get to the point where you don't mind presenting yourself and standing up in front of the whole world and say, hey, look at my painting on my milk cans. Look how good they are. Doesn't hurt one bit for Debbie to stand up on a stage and have the world, all of us, pat her on the back and say how good her work is. It doesn't hurt one bit when Jay can hold up his motorcycle part. If you got that handy now, let's put it up so everybody can see it, Jay. He's working on this really fancy custom piece.
You talking about the hub bar? Or?
Yeah, the hub. Yeah.
Oh, God, just weighs a ton. Or it feels like it anyway. This is the center hub for the wheel that sits behind me.
Wow.
That I've been working on.
So is there a square inch left that could be engraved, or have you just about got it all?
Yeah, I've got a whole section. Let's see, where am I here? Yeah, I got a whole section right in here that hasn't been touched, but that's pretty much the way the owner wants it.
Sure, absolutely. Have you had a good time engraving it, Jay?
Oh, I have had a blast. I've had a few nightmares, and I think I've got a few. At one time I could not have got any more gray hairs. Well, I think I have on this project.
Well, us old codgers with no hair or gray hair or white hair, that's part of the reason, Jay. But isn't that anxiousness a really great thing to take on?
It is.
Where the good stuff is. Yep.
Like I said many times before, I'm kind of one of the new kids on the block, with the network and all that. But it's just like, Ron was saying a little bit ago when, Sonia reached out to me because she couldn't get a hold of Ron, and I got a hold of Ron and kind of got him back to Sonia. A deal that I posted, I believe it was either yesterday or day before, of a flag case, veterans flag case that I had done. I believe you commented on it, Lou.
Oh, yeah.
Elena had got a hold of me, and she's like, I just had somebody bring me one of those to do, asked me if I could engrave it. She goes, but I have no idea what to do on it. She goes, your post hit at the perfect time. And she sent me an email today. She goes, asked me, do you have copies of all the different military logos, and could you send them to me? So I just sent him my whole file.
Oh,
Every
damn.
military logo, for all the different branches, and even
Yeah.
some that you don't even see nowadays, like the Army Air Corps and the old wax, the Women's Army Corps emblem.
Yeah.
You don't see those nowadays, but there's still people out there that want them, and that made me feel good being able to help her or be able to get a hold of Ron to get him back in touch with Sonia.
My brother saw that. Doug's carving a couple of wooden plates right now, and he saw that post that you guys did. He was on for the first time the night we did the Keith Hone program down at Keith's studio, and he watched it from YouTube, and I had no idea he was even on. And I can't wait to introduce Doug to you and have you connect and see he's really, really good with the equipment. But now he can play with us full time. And almost every day there's somebody new that bumps back into us. We got 25,000 kits out there. There's a lot of people who have that damn drill, and they just still don't quite know what to do with it. And we're the ones that are basically giving them these ideas. Doug called me and he says, that guy put that logo, he says, we got Dad's flag and it's in one of those cases just like that. He says, hell, I could put that logo on there. And I'm going, yeah, you really could. I would love to have you do it. And how many are out there across the world that have that same circumstance? And with everything going on with the VA and the whole veterans major firestorm, that just raises the visibility more and more of what you've accomplished, Jay. You've done something that very few people can do with their life. And I think that's the greatest thing ever is it's one thing to try. It's another thing to get your head hammered and your hands beat up and get your butt in trouble with things in life, which happens to all of us. But it's another thing to find a way to pass that. Another way to accomplish it. So congratulations to you, Jay Boy. Appreciate what you're doing, and you're contributing an absolute ton. Sonia, did you ever get your microphone going? I just would love to drag you into this live somehow. If we can't figure out some way to get you on the show with us from Canada, we really need Canadian participation here. And Canadians are really busy people all the time. Very hard to slow them down and get them to come and sit down in a show with us. Got too much growing. They got a little growing season, and they got to hurry and get it done. Any other comments from anybody? Been fun to visit
I got
with
a comment.
You tonight. Go ahead, Mel.
It's on that Google Glass. Well, you and I kind of missed the boat on that. They were doing a spoof about the Google Glass, which is a new computer system set up in the eyeglass frame. And the screen is a heads-up display on the lens. That's why it costs $1,500.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we looked at the engraved glass and said, ooh, we could do that.
No, I was looking at the impact, the idea that was the Google Glass. That's what was attractive to all of them. And my opinion was, Jesus, a set of those, you could sell a $100 set of those really quickly. So you and I were looking at coming at it from a different direction, but they basically laid the idea right in front of us. No question. That's a super strong. Now, if I can figure out how to get to them and get permission for our network to reproduce that glass, I think Google would want us to do it. And there would be some really substantial business underneath everything, every blaster out there. And we're basically positioned a little better to actually do that than any other organization. So I'm trying to find my way in the door already. I really would like to get their permission to be able to jump on it, because it was perfect. It's a strong, strong idea.
Yeah, I had some contacts with Chevrolet about their logos, and sure, I could reproduce them for 10 grand.
Yeah, they usually have a license fee that's pretty nasty.
Yeah, but if I did it for a car club, I can get away with it.
Yeah.
Without
I've
bidding.
done lots of things on an individual basis when I just thought, I'm doing 4 things of things. There's no way I'm going to have to worry about a university logo or whatever. The problem now is you just can't post anything. If you post it up on the web, somebody, that computer is going to recognize it. And I guarantee you that's a bad move to copy a logo and take some graphic image and idea and post it. So
Oh yeah.
I'll be more careful with that as time goes on.
Yeah, it's called CYA.
There's a book in there.
Yeah, there have been several books about CYA.
I was
Yeah,
going to say,
there
especially
has.
if you've ever been in the military, there have definitely been a lot of books about CYA.
There's a lot of CYA going on in the military today, but that kid they've let out, I've traded all the hoopla over that kid from Idaho that they got out of the Taliban, and I'm just going, boy, every politician loves to be standing on the stage when things work out, but boy, talk about CYA, the second it's not so good, they just run for cover.
Yeah, there's a bunch of them ducking flak right now.
They're going about as fast as they can, so. Well, I appreciate you coming on. I hope you got something tonight that will continue to inspire you to pull out your own. You got to make your map. You got to know where you're going, and then every chance you can, re-look at your compass. Get a reference constantly. Am I on track? Is this, every time some new project comes up, then you can measure it against, here's where I want to end up over here. And will this project help me get there? Instead of it just be some more money and someone throws the money at you, you just got to see what's happened in Jose's life right now. He is opening the door to the rest of his life. As soon as the television gets done and the magazine publishing gets done and this project gets a little bit of steam underneath it, it's going to influence the direction of everything else he does all the rest of his days. And it's going to be big money. Really, really good money. And so when you see that pattern in Jose's life, that should start to affect your own thinking. It should help you to kind of do your motorcycle directions a little better. I think Debbie's on the verge of discovering kind of what she's maybe been looking for a long time. She's a very accomplished decorative art painter. But how do you make money at that? Where is the potential of the future? And how many are in decorative art painting who don't know how to do the business game? They don't know how to trade well in the economy. They just know how to do the painting. And that's true for, I think, across the entire board of the art world. Most artists are terrible at marketing and their own business. They just don't understand that what you're really developing the growth and value is in your own name and your own reputation, and you're the person that did that artwork. That's what you can grow. That's what people buy from. They don't buy it from somebody else. How did the things go on when, Lance, you and I talked about your pricing and your mixing with that, the guy you're proposing the work for? You been able to connect with him yet?
Yeah, I talked to him a couple days ago. We haven't finalized anything, but he looked at the high end of the scale and agreed with it.
Good. Oh,
we talked, so yeah. And I told him, I want to work with him because he's got the experience and the expert, and I could tell he liked that approach. So
good. Bingo. That works most of the time. All right, gang. One of the next things I want you all to begin to work on too is, I talk about it often, but I don't come back and push it quite enough, and that's your individual databases. Every day your own database should grow. You should spot somebody every day that if you started interacting with them, it would help your own name and reputation grow. And Google Plus now is damn near the most incredible way to do that I have ever seen. If you sensed at all how quickly and how easily Ron got to Brett Baer and Fox News, and And you know that side of Fox News is going to grow. That little sit-down session for them was a very new deal for them all. But you know they're going to try and figure out how to take advantage of it. Well, being able to get to somebody now is what this tool really represents the most. But I think you have to cultivate the relationship in order to make it work out. I got to sit down Sunday afternoon for 3 hours with easily one of the most wealthy people on the freaking planet. And I'm trying to lay down these last few things that I've worked on for a very long time and make them actually really take off. And it's the poker game of my life, basically. And I kept driving home, I kept thinking, well, but most people don't have a clue how much I put into the developing the relationship with Jacob. It's just taken a lot of attention on my part to say, well, what can I do to move that relationship on? And how I have tried to do it is to pay attention to a thank you that I can make custom engraved sandblast or airbrush and do a thank you for them. Something that's better than what anyone else has ever done. I sandblasted some crystal for the university president to give to Steve Covey. When Covey gave BYU $2 million gift, I did a beautiful piece of crystal. And it was his personal thank you to Steve Covey. And that opened the door then for me to continue doing more of those kinds of personalized high-end custom thank yous. And if you'll just realize how strong that is, how good that is to cultivate these relationships, and then continue to work with them. You have power people in your life, you've got people you've bumped into, you've got media all around you, you've got opportunity everywhere, but most of us never get in a position where we can actually take advantage of it. And I will promise you, you keep showing up and mixing with me on doing these shows, the INE network will one day be your own database as well. That's what I'm really trying to accomplish now with my last few years. Okay, any other questions, comments? Willie, how are you doing? How's the summer treating you, bud?
Hey, doing great, Dr. Lou. I was just thinking about the roadmap of life, my life. I divided it into two parts. One's the want world and one's the needs world.
Yep.
And in the needs world's business plan is a traditional business plan that we're all familiar with. But the want world is a unique business plan. And opportunity intersection is the only one that I'm aware of that approaches it from that unique standpoint of working backwards, looking forward to the front of your life. So my thumbs up on that book, Opportunity Intersection. As far as I know, it's the only business plan that approaches that the needs world or the wants world.
I appreciate you noticing that because that's the core. That's the big difference. I really do think it's a unique tool. Now figure out how to use it, Steve. Make it do for you what it's supposed to do. Then you'll become a leader. You guys, there's not a one of us sitting here that don't know the heat on the Veterans Administration. There's not a one of us that don't know how much trouble the Veterans Administration is in. And we know how much want, the demand, and the need there is out there. And as you guys succeed, we need to promote each other and brag about each other and let the world know what we've accomplished. You guys that are veterans that are busy doing something here really are pioneers. And I really appreciate your persistent effort with it. Should be good for a lot of people before we're done. Okay, Deb? Did you fall asleep, girl, or did we keep you up long enough?
Asleep. Not asleep yet.
I don't know anybody that works harder than you, Debbie Corman. Every time I connect with your schedule, I just apologize because I used to work that hard, but I don't anymore. I'm
proofing a 56-page magazine tonight yet. So.
Oh wow! Well, let's turn you loose and let you go get to work then. Keep us all in mind. How you doing, Rod? You got your mic on?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
I made it in.
Good, good. You did get here. That's excellent. He was having computer troubles, and we were worried about him not being able to do it, but you pulled it off.
I appreciate you keeping me in your prayers. I had all my teeth pulled, so I'm getting dentures.
Okay. Well, that'll be a good thing for you. You'll be
Enjoy the show.
surprised. You'll be surprised at the energy that comes back. Not so good teeth can actually drain you pretty significantly. So I saw it in every patient. I had to hold their hand through this not so good experience, and both Rod and I got hammered by dentistry yesterday. So we're glad to not be victims today, right?
Right.
All righty. Okay, everybody. Good to visit with you. Take care. Track the things that interest you. If there's anything that I've done that I think has ended up being of value in my life is I've played with these threads of interest. I don't do the things that I don't like to do. And if I like to do it, I'll just dive in. Just turn ordinary things into passionate efforts, and you cannot help but be rewarded almost beyond your dreams. Okay? Then we've got something to share with the world. Good night, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow night. I think I'll be fine for the show tomorrow night, Mel, so I'll try and pick this up, light it up, and we'll go from there. All right?
Yep. Hey,
All right.
Go ahead. Does your compass come with blinders to deflect shiny?
You know the answer to that one. That's Lou Jensen's. Chris always teases me because the one thing I harp about the most, because it's the one thing I'm worst at, is in the next half hour I could have another really, really good idea, and bam, I'm off that way. So, yeah, that's the right brain nemesis. Is too many good ideas.
Hey, get ambushed.
Yeah, that ambush. God, I love you guys. Thank you for coming and sitting down and giving us a reason to keep doing this. It just feels so strong to me. And when each of you have your own shows and each of you have your own lives heading in the direction that you're pleased with, try and sense how good the phone calls between me and Jose are right now. Try and sense how good the phone calls between me and Craig now are. Robin Colson has got the door all but open for the best story we've ever had. She starts on these doors for Kathy Ireland, and oh my Lord, it's hard to even imagine where that's going to take her future. So it's great to have the talent and ability, but the best thing going on here is we're affecting the marketplace by what you're learning and how you're learning how to do it. And I think that's been the thing that's wrong in the art culture forever, is nobody tells you how to take on the marketplace. And you're all getting better and better and better at it. Okay, good night, everybody. See